All right, welcome back to the shop. So this growler just showed up the other day, and I'm going to do a quick video on what I look at when they first show up. There's a lot of things that I kind of glance at right off the bat, so I can get an idea what I'm going to need for parts. If I'm going to need CV boots, if I'm going to need tires, any components that are missing or that are obviously need to be replaced. So the first thing I do is just kind of take a quick walk around and look at it. You can tell it's a really nice growler. You can tell it hasn't had the undercoating sprayed on the bottom. It hasn't been repainted at all. A lot of the growlers we see have been repainted. They've been recarked. This one's original. You can tell because it has different color components in here. Come around here, looking at the front suspension, I can look at the front steering servo, or not servo, but the rack, and it's got new boots on it. So the boots must have been bad. Somebody started working on this, and they kind of did about half the work maybe. You can see that looking right away at the CV joints or CV boots, it's going to need new CV boots. Look at the ball joints, the rubbers are shot on the ball joints. So once I pull the spindle off to do the CV axle, then I'll check the ball joints. If they're still good, I'll just put a new rubber on them. Looking at the airbags, it's got some surface cracking on it. I'm going to get a better look at that once I have it off. They might be okay to go for quite a while. If not, or if the customer wants, I'll replace them, put brand new ones on it. We'll come back over, well, look over here at the tire. The tire's got some serious cracking to it. Starting to crack out on the lugs there, here on the shoulder. Let's check the date on it. Is that the date code? No, that's not the date code. There's a date code right there. The 31st week of 2010. So these tires are already 12 years old. So I'm going to talk to the customer and see if he wants to put new tires on it, or if he just wants to run those out. And, depends what he wants to do with it. If he's going to drive it on the freeway, use it on the road a lot, he might want new tires. But if he's just going to use it on a farm, or just use it just to go screw around in, they'll probably last a long time. So I'll leave that up to the customer. Coming back over here, somebody's changed the right side front mirror. It's got a kind of a totally different style mirror on it. And it's got the original one over here on this side. So somebody, must have got broken off and they replaced one mirror. But back in here, no real leaks or anything down here on the hydraulic pump. That's good. It's nice and dry. The servo unit's all dry. Let's back up in here. These bushings look really good, so I won't have to worry about those. When I get it up on the rack, that's when I check the driveline to see if it's been bent. It's missing, it has the front skid plate, but it's missing the other two. But you see these scratches right here. Those are usually indicative of it rubbing on the pan. So they probably bent the pan at some point, and that driveline was rubbing on there. In fact, it looks like the driveline might have been hitting right here on the transmission drain pan or oil pan. So I'll definitely check that to make sure it's not bent. One thing about the transmission, so we saw that the transmission computer was just hanging from, it was just laying there on the floor in the passenger compartment. And then I look at the transmission, it's got that spray that they put underneath on the frames on all the growlers that have gotten salt water. They kind of put that under just to hide them, I guess, or maybe to protect it. So it's kind of showing me that this transmission is not the original transmission from this growler. They took it out of a parts machine and put it in this one. Right there, you can see the tabs are bent for the skid plates. So they obviously bent the skid plates up real bad. So I'm almost positive this driveline is going to be bent. But when we get on the lift, we'll straighten all those tabs out. And if the customer wants, I'll see if I can find some skid plates for him. It just depends on if he wants to put the money into it or not. Let's come back around real quick at this transmission computer. So the mounts are still there. It's not like the mounts broke off. Okay, we've got a sticker here on the back. 626427 bad trans. I can't tell if there's another word after that or not. It may say bad trans computer or just saying bad trans. But so this came off of vehicle ID number 626427. This is 626613. So that transmission computer was robbed off of another growler, off of a parts growler, and was put on here probably to try to fix the shifting problem. Now one thing that I noticed when I was driving it, back here to the shop from where they unloaded it out in the street, that the transmission's in fail-safe mode. So something's going on. I already pulled and checked the fuse. This is 25 amp fuse right here at the bottom. I don't think that's supposed to be a 25. That's supposed to be a 15 amp. But it's not blown. So that's always the first thing I check when they're in fail-safe mode. So this one's going to take a little bit of troubleshooting to figure out the transmission. and figure out if it's the shift computer or if it is the transmission, or there could be 10 other things in line between the two that are causing it to go into fail-safe mode. I'm looking right here at the windshield. This passenger side windshield's cracked. So I will, the other side's not cracked, but it's starting to haze out really bad on the edges. So I'll probably get, since I have to get a piece of glass for this, I'll get two new ones cut and then replace them both. That way it'll look right. It won't look like a new piece of glass on the right side and, you know, some old fogged out one on the driver's side. Plus it'll just give them a lot better visibility because you can really see it in here. It's not too often you see those starting to fog out like that. All right, okay, this mirror's missing, it's broken off, so we'll replace that. It's already got a key switch, so someone was working on this, they added the key switch. I'll go through and check all the lights. I won't bother to do that right now, just there's no reason to do that on the video. We can see it's got the controller for the rear steer. That's all intact or in place. All the gauges seem to be in place. I tested them when I drove it back here. They all appear to be working. It's got about 650 miles on it. It sounds like it's not a lot of miles, but for something like this, it's probably like buying a car with 40,000 miles on it, you know, the way these things get used. I did test out the suspension system. The knob's missing for the presets, and I tried to just push the button and go to whatever preset it's on, and it just wanted to go all the way up. So I think this is turned all the way up to the max height. So I just set the suspension with the toggle switches, and it seemed to work correctly. That was working good. The fuel tank switch, I didn't test it because the right side tank is empty, so I didn't bother to switch it over. And the CTIS system is working. I tested it out, it already works. You can tell somebody had the comm mount bracket off because it only has 2 screws put back in it. And you know, there are you can access some of the wiring for the transmission through here. So I don't know if someone had it off and they were like diagnosing and trying to troubleshoot the transmission or what, but I'll also find out if he wants to take this off and put a flat plate. Every growler except one that I've done, we've done that, because this thing here is just, it's just asking to break your elbow. So, you know, if it had the radios mounted to it, it's going to be this wide. You know, it's going to have plenty of girth to it, so if you bump into it, it's not a big deal. But without the comms in there, this thing right there is going to kill your elbow. So that's something else I got to put on the list. Looking down here, and somebody had the relay board down, so they were testing stuff to see, I don't know if they're trying to fix something, that or they left it down when they were changing the switch, I don't know. But this one is really clean. All the relays are marked, which is really awesome. So we'll make sure all the wiring's okay in there and put that back up. And then coming around, you can see the dent here. That's where one of the tabs is for the belly pan underneath. So when that tab got bent, it bent this whole side panel here. You can tell it's got some rust. This thing did see some salt water, or it looks like a saltwater rust, but it's not that bad. But you can see some areas of it. If you see this weird kind of green color, it's like an off-color green. I see that on quite a few ones that came from Georgia, and I don't know why. I don't know if they were trying to touch it up with the wrong paint in Georgia, but I don't really think that's what it was, because the way this stuff lays, I think somebody was spraying some kind of a rust inhibitor on there. And even though this is caulk, right, it's chemical agent resistant coating. Whatever they were spraying on here is getting into this stuff, and it's hurting the caulk. So I'm not going to touch up the paint. That'll be up to the owner, but I believe that's what that's from. Kind of makes them look kind of scummy, actually, I think, when it's like that. I'm glad mine didn't have it. If it did, I definitely would touch it up. I'd buy some of that 383 spray paint. You can find it on eBay. All right, so come around, fuel tanks, everything looks clean. There's nothing leaking on the caps. The footwells down here are clean and dry. It's got a fire extinguisher mounted right here, which is cool. Originally, it's mounted under the front passenger seat on these 61s. Come back around. See, everything's nice and clean in here. You can tell it hasn't been repainted. Like, this airbag doesn't look too bad. There's a tiny bit of checking in it, but it's not bad. And then we come around to the back. It's all straight and clean. Everything looks good. We flip the lid. It's got new batteries. It started great. It didn't have a problem. You can tell it had some salt water must have got up in here, because some of these breakers are rusted out here, and somebody just replaced the breaker and they didn't bother to mount it to the wall, back to the sidewall here. They just left it hanging there by the wires. And then if you see this ground wire right here, somebody grounded a wire there spliced two of these wires together, which are ground wires for the air ride height control solenoids. So I'm going to fix that up, and this is a terrible joint right here. That's not even crimped very well. So we'll fix that up, and we'll do that right. I'll get rid of that ground shooting all the way across, and I'll find a good ground spot here, get that cleaned up. The air dryers, everything looks intact here. They don't look, you know, rusted or anything like that. You notice the rear steer unit is missing, so it's got these crazy temporary brackets in here. So one thing I'll have to do is, you know, one thing I already did is I talked to the owner when I first saw this thing, and I gave him the phone number of a friend of mine who has some of those for sale, and so he can get that shipped over to me, and then we can replace that rear steer unit. Even if he doesn't want to use it, I'd still put it in there just because these are dangerous. And the only other solution would be to put like some 2-inch square tubing or something across from one to the other, weld it together real good to give them some strength. Because the way they're built here, they are not strong at all. And we look in here, tie rod looks good. This looks good. All the rear CVs are bad. The upper boots are bad on the ball joints. The lower boots seem to be okay. So we come back out, and then we'll come over and we'll lift up the engine hood and we'll take a look under here and see what things look like. So there's some rust on the turbo. Definitely salt water hit that turbo. So one thing I'll have to do is I'll pull this rod off, and I have to test this and make sure that the wastegate flapper inside there is working correctly. If it's froze up, we'll work on it, free it up. Pull the oil out of the trans. It's a little bit low. It smells good. It smells like really fresh oil, but it's a little low because when these aren't running, it should be above the full mark. It's actually below the full mark right now. So we're definitely going to be looking into that transmission. Come down here, look at a fan belt. Doesn't look too bad. I'll get in there when I have better light on it. Open up the air cleaner. It still has the pre-cleaner sock on the air cleaner. I'll still pull it out and clean it, make sure that it's good to go. Everything under the hood looks pretty good. You know, I look for stuff like piston hose clamps on the boost hook tubes. Look for oil leaking, obviously, coolant leaking. Everything looks pretty good on that side. Come back around here. Looks like it's got the original oil filter on it. It's possible they changed that. In fact, I think they did, because you see this, they got this tattletale paint stuff on here, so you can see if things have come loose. And it's on that side of the filter housing, but there's none on the filter. They probably had it going across the filter. That way you could just tell at a glance if it's turning, if it's coming loose. But either way, we're going to change the oil in it. We'll change the fuel filter. It looks like it's been on there for a long time. The hydraulic filter looks fresh. Looks like someone's just changed it, so I don't think I'll bother with that. And then fluid levels up there, which is good. I've actually had them show up with no fluid at all. We're going to be adding fluid because we're going to add the rear steer unit, so that's not even an issue right now. I love this. Look what that clamp is. It's on the tube. It's just choked up real hard, but the tube, you can feel the lip of the tube is right there. It looks odd, but it's okay. Sometimes I come through here too and just kind of snug up all these hose clamps, just because the rubber over time, after getting hot, getting cold, getting hot, the rubber will shrink a little bit, and so I'll tighten the clamps up while I'm in here. So everything looks pretty good. The brake fluid's way up high. Somebody probably topped it off. And then once we get on the lift, we'll look at the brakes. We'll look at the transmission again. We'll look at the differentials. We'll probably change the fluid on the differentials and everything. We'll check the rear drive line to make sure it's straight. So let's go ahead and we'll pop this on the lift and we'll take a look underneath. All right, so I've got it up on the lift. I haven't even, this will be my first time looking at it. I haven't even glanced at it yet since I put it up. So I'm sure that's the original engine. It looks normal there. You can see again the CV boots ripped. You can see the grease has been leaking out and dripping off that ball joint. Transmission, you can definitely tell this thing came off of a different vehicle. Once I get it out of there, I'll see if I can see the number. Well, if I have to get it out, hopefully I don't. But if I do, I'll see if there's another number on it. Find out what growler it came from. Let's see if we can turn this drive shaft. See if I can hold that flashlight at the same time. It doesn't look real bent. Actually looks pretty good. I am very surprised. I'll hold a piece of chalk on there later when I have free hands, and then I'll rotate it and see if it is bent. But it actually looks good. I'm very surprised. Yeah, I've got the parking brake on. I can't turn the rear one. The rear ones usually aren't bent. It usually takes quite a bit of a blow down here to do that. This one actually doesn't have any paint on it. I don't know if I had that silver color paint before, or if it just didn't have paint. I don't know. CTIS controller looks really clean, or the manifold. You definitely see CV boots here. Look, LSR or LSVR, so rear. So I don't know if somebody had these off or if they labeled these before they put them on in the factory. They are different front and rear. The rear ones have smaller pistons in them, so that the rears don't, the wheels don't lock up. You can tell someone's been greasing it, even though it doesn't have a boot on there. We'll fix that. These are the switches I was talking about in my last video about these talk to the air ride controller, so it knows how high up it is, and just, it's a position sensor. There's one on each wheel, and they look good. They're not rusted. I've seen them really caked down with rust and really crappy looking before. Those look good. So I actually think these quality control marks here are from when they assembled it. So I don't think this thing's ever been apart. I think all this labeling is from the factory. Look at it, it doesn't even have the right bolts. It should have a plate in here with 2 bolts welded to it. So it's had a couple issues with the pans in the past where someone has taken them off. And then here's a really good view up in the under skirt here where the rear steer controller should be. So we've got the airline for the locks, we've got the electric controllers, the sensor controllers, we've got the hydraulic in and out lines. Yeah, it looks good. There's no frame rust or anything. I've got one Growler sitting outside there that I did a short on, and it's really, really rusted, and it was so bad I can't even save the Growler. The frame's starting to kind of just, looks like it's delaminating, even though it's not laminated steel. Just the way that the rust is in there, kind of peeling the steel apart. Okay, well, the transmission's not leaking anywhere. Nothing real bad. It's plugged in. The electrical's plugged in. So I have some troubleshooting to do on this. I actually have 2 other Growlers I have to finish before I work on this one. I just wanted to do the video on this one because it just showed up. So after I get done with those 2, I'll do the troubleshooting on this trans. And maybe I'll do a vehicle on that one I'm doing, or do a video on that one while I'm doing it, so you guys kind of know what to look at if you have to troubleshoot yours. So yeah, overall it's a good looking Growler. It's not bad. We just got to do that rear steer, some of the basic stuff. Yeah, the front steering rack looks like it's leaking a little bit on the driver's side. This side here, somebody put new boots on it. Yeah, everything looks pretty good. And one thing, see this is what bent that tub up in the footwell on the driver's side. When it bent this tab up, they either landed on something or they just did it with the forklift when they were unloading it at Gulf Planet, which is probably what it is. And I heard a real serious rattle too when I was moving this into the shop here. I could hear something clanking and rattling, and it's right here. This exhaust is gonna be bouncing on that tab right there. So we'll definitely straighten that tab out and make sure that it's not gonna be hitting that exhaust and making just an annoying noise. And then I did see it had a broken hanger out here. That rod right there for the hanger's broken. I should be able to just bend that back, or push it up into place and weld it back on. If that doesn't look like it's going to be good enough, I have these. I could change it, and we'll just put a new one in there. I could tell one thing when I was moving it in the shop. I could smell it was burning JP8 still. You can definitely tell the difference between diesel and JP8. So this thing hasn't been used really since it left, the Marine Corps. See up in there, so you can see up on the engine there's a couple areas that got some rust. Must have took one quick splash in the ocean or something like that, and then they must have cleaned it quick enough so it didn't really get into everything real bad. There's some corrosion on there on that strut. But But anyways, that's some of the stuff that I look at when they come up, you know, when they show up. Just gives me an idea, so I know, okay, I'm going to need 8 CV boots. I'm going to need 4 ball joint boots. And I kind of have it all in my, well, actually I'll write it down, but it'll be in my head so that when I order stuff, I'll order stuff, you know, that's come for growlers that are coming up. And just get a game, you know, kind of get a game plan in my head on it. And, you know, also getting this rear steer unit for the back. That might take a few weeks to get that anyways. And I hate to have this thing on the lift and have it all done and not be able to put that in. And so actually the funny thing is I've got 2 more 1161 sitting over there, and I already put the rear steer controller on one because it was missing. The other one doesn't have one either. So this would be 3 in a row that don't have that rear steer controller. And the one that's outside that's all rusted up, it doesn't have it either. I think all these ones came from Georgia because they all have the same kind of, I need to look the numbers up and see if they came from Georgia or not. There's a spreadsheet on the Growler forum about it, so I can see, because I think in Georgia they were taking that rear steer controller off before they sold them, just for liability issues. And over in Yermo in California, they were just welding the locks up. Instead of taking this unit off and building these stupid brackets and everything, they just welded the locks on so you couldn't use it. It's a lot better idea. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And hit that notification bell so you know when I have new videos that post. And thanks for watching.